Do we want to tackle some of your networking questions or some of the networking questions? Just to
Yeah,
may as well.
that was a good time when we're up.
Yeah. Ooh, what was the
Let's
first one?
see.
I forget.
I wrote it down.
I'll handle it.
Oh, yeah, I got
doing
it here. What are the different types of networking events? It's like, usually that's just like defining it. What am I looking for after, I guess, would be a good way to go next.
The way that I try to think about it that proved successful for me as far as how to break it down and strategize which ones to go to are there's two types of events, general and specific. General are general topics. So as an example, this is the startup industry, all industries, right? This is the small business group. This is the AI group, right? Then you go into the specifics. Oh, this is for agriculture startups. This is for AI automation using whatever. This is for like SaaS companies in the marine industry. You start getting specific. And my general go-to is I like to always hit a mixture of both, because if you only go to your sub-focus, you're going to miss a lot of general knowledge that can be applied to a lot of other things, and a lot of knowledge doesn't get shared between groups. And then I like to do the very specific ones because that's where, of course, a lot of role players go. So you get kind of a combination of I'll go to the general entrepreneurship fair and just try and meet people at the bar and say what's up and see what people are doing. And everybody knows somebody or has another intro for you. So they should forfeit right now. So there's plenty of opportunity. But then I also would go to, for example, if I was building a B2B SaaS business in the healthcare industry, I'd go to the B2B place, that's specific. I'd go to the SaaS place, that's specific. I'd go to the B2B SaaS place, the B2B healthcare space. I'd hit all of those as well as the general, because then you get the most exposure.
Gotcha.
Because a big part of networking is you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know who you don't know. And if you over silo either way, I feel like you miss out on pretty big opportunities.
Yeah, but they also offer their own different values besides that too, you said.
Correct. That's why I think there's value in both. I wouldn't go all in on either, but I would definitely tap both. And I did across many industries and had tons of success meeting interesting people at the most random of bars, but also the most like serious angel investors from X, Y, and Z fund that are on a panel with me or whatever.
Yeah.
That's bro. You got boost, and you give them. Oh, if you hit it, then go for it. I love he's coaching him. What a supportive teammate. And then from there, it becomes a question of like, what am I trying to get out of the event? Because I think a big thing that people do is they overlook. Going to an event without an intention is a problem, because then you don't know how to like direct your attention. But going to an event with only intention is also a problem, because you miss out on opportunities. People will say things or bring something up, and you this is the art meets science, where you have to start learning what's worth digging into a bit. But
yeah,
I find that comes mostly from learning how to find out who's saying the real things. And the number one rule is don't judge by appearance. Notice the appearance, because there's always a certain degree of like the guy in the suit versus the guy in the sweatpants. But the guy in the sweatpants might be in the sweatpants because he's worth $30 million and he's sleepy. The guy in the suit might be a mid-level guy that has to wear a suit and has no idea.
Boy on our hands.
That's all there is to it. Hey, you're worth $30 million. Be sleepy where you want. What the fuck?
Yeah, you deserve that.
Yeah, you worked hard. It also gives you a good answer. A big thing that people struggle with networking is they go, I don't know what to say. Well, all you have to do is say factually true statements. But people just, again, people think that you have to talk by asking questions, when most of the time when people talk, they're making statements like, hey, it's hot today. And the person goes, yeah, it is hot. I burned my foot stepping out on the concrete. It's like, none of those are questions. So you go to a networking event and they go, oh, someone will prompt you. They'll be like, oh, what brings you here? Or you ask someone what brings you here. And then you just start making statements. Oh, my name's Nathaniel. Oh, I do this. I do that. I'm interested in this. I'm interested in that. And they're immediately, again, depending on how socially aware they are, they're going to either bite or not bite. Everyone's a fish. And then from there, it's do you get something good? Do you get a good intro, a good conversation? Is there a good flow? Or is it just something to get in and out of quickly? And there's plenty of those.
Kind of answers something I had another question on, and just like, what's the attitude of people there? Like, are they like, they're as open as you are? Not open, but like open to talking, I guess I could say.
It varies.
As you are?
It does vary. Some people are very closed off. They're there more to like they have to be, or like a flex. There's plenty of people at events and I'm like, bro, what is his energy? But there are, if you go to the right event, meaning the culture is friendly and warm, you'll have an 80-90% hit rate positive of at least people talking to you. From there, it becomes a question of how many people are worth talking to that can help you, or you can help them, or you at least get along with them in some capacity.
Is there a way to look for that cultural thing when you're for the first time Googling where to go for these networking events? Or is it just the experience kind of thing?
Yes and no. It's always better to test the events in person, because that's where you're going to learn the most and see how many people show up, and what's the vibe while people are there, and are people helpful, or are they just like hanging around flexing, not really doing things? A big question I always ask is, are these talkers or doers? Is this a room full of people that are here to be here? Or is this a room full of people that are here so they can enable themselves to do other things outside of here? They want to close deals, they want to get knowledge, they want to find partners and get the hell out of that room and get back to work. There are plenty of people that just want to have a good time at networking events and be somebody in a room. Know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that is, you have to kind of learn, and the best rooms have the fewest of those, right? And that comes with learning. All right, does the moderator have a high quality standard? And it's not just that it costs money. It's, is there planning? Are there topics? Is the culture good? And most of that can't be seen on the event, but it can be felt after the first, event or two.
I got you. You want to cast a wide net. You don't want to just keep it to a few.
Correct. But I'll throw a counterpoint on there, just because there's always a good counterpoint for business things, which is, if you find an event that's good, you should lean into that event as regularly as time allows within reason. So a perfect example would be, I find an event that happens every week that I think is good. I wouldn't go there every week. I would go there every other week to once a month, because then I'm there enough to be remembered and talk to people and do some deals or have some questions, or have some positive experiences. But I'm not there so much that I'm a fixture that people get bored. You want, when you show up to a place, they know you, they like you, whatever, and that comes with going a couple times. But then from there, it's like when you show up, they're like, oh, blah, blah, blah. The amount of rooms that I've been fortunate to walk into, and they go like, oh, Aaron, it's great that you're here. It's doing there. And I was so busy, I didn't even think about it, but I hadn't been there in a couple weeks. And I noticed just how warm the reception was, the intros, the this, the that, because they're like, oh, you're here. We should do this. We should do that. And I know that if I had been there 100 times, it would have been far less engaging, because you become a part of the room instead of someone in the room.
It's like a networking hack more than anything.
Very much so. Here's another networking hack. Stand near the food.
Yeah.
Everyone always doesn't know what to say, and then someone will walk up and get a piece of food, and all you have to do is go, oh, those ones are my favorite. And you know what someone's going to respond? They're going to go like, really? Well, why? What's in them? Like, oh, are they good? And all of a sudden you have a friend. And you can talk to them and be, oh, and by the way, what do you do? And then that person goes, oh, I'm the VP of whatever. And it's like, you just have a very casual conversation going with someone that you definitely want to talk to. And trust me, he wants to talk to you more than he wants to talk to people that walk up and shake his hand with a vice and try and shove a business card in his face.
It's almost like just getting that human connection down first. It builds a little rapport.
That's exactly right.
It's a little bit easier to break that barrier down after that.
The two things that I always would do at every networking event is stand near the food, and that's not just a fat thing. That's because of the ability to talk and network and say what's up. And the other The other is be helpful. So if someone needs the door opened, or if someone's reaching for something and they can't grab it, these little human moments of actually just like being someone nice in the room goes so far as building rapport with people across the room, because people are watching each other in networking events. They notice.
Yeah, for sure.
a funny story about people noticing. I was in a economics class that had like 200 people in it, 300 people in it. And there was a girl that sat like, I sat in like, let's say the first 2 or 3 rows. She sat in like the last 2 or 3 rows on the opposite side of the room. So she could kind of see me. I could barely see her. I knew her because we went to the class all the time, so I recognized her face. And I would sit at my desk and I would just like spin my little pen, you know, just like play with it in my hand. And like 3 years later, I met her randomly at like some party or something, and we were chatting. She goes, "Oh, you're the kid that's always spinning the pen." And I was like, "How do you remember?" It's because people notice that there's a lie that when they go, "No, when you're out there, no one's noticing you." Liar. They are. They are watching you. They are staring at you. They may not notice you for long, but God damn it, they absolutely put their eyes on you and make an assessment and opinions and judgments. So that plays in.
So you're saying be in your A game.
Oh yes. Expect to be profiled. Expect someone, if you walk in there in a like it's like I am a business networking professional. So I know that if you walk up to me at an event and you're in a suit or you're in a dirty sweatsuit, you'll get the exact same look, response, energy from me. Like I am just totally neutral because we're at the event. So who could you be? Maybe someone important. But there's lots of events where people, they don't even have like those basic skills down. And it's like, all right, well, you're going to be profiled. Someone, if you walk in there with a suit, people are going to see you as a professional in a suit or whatever. If you walk in there business casual, people are going to go, oh, maybe he's like looking for a job or doing this. If you walk in there in a t-shirt and jeans, people will think, oh, he's casual, or maybe he's already rich or whatever it is. There's always a vibe, and you don't have to match your vibe, you know what I mean? But people will make judgments, because when you look around the room to decide who you want to network with, you can't spot their personality.
Yeah.
You can only spot
You're not
if
saying what's good or bad. You're just trying to help people with network.
Correct. And it's all about who they resonate with. I could care if someone resonates with tall people, short people, skinny people, fat people, if they want to resonate with the rich guy in the $3,000 suit, or they want to, you know, connect with whoever. But expect that people are going to form an opinion. I had a client, he was having trouble raising money, and he was a Hispanic kid that was creating a fintech platform, right? He was just a young guy, not a kid, but young guy. And he dressed like it. He looked like a rich fintech Hispanic guy. So when he walked into rooms, people took him deadly seriously, because they're like, oh yeah, this guy, he's young, he's building a fintech, he's got glasses, he's wearing a nice collared button-down shirt, like he's dressed the part and he looks comfortable in his clothes. So it's a good thing, right? He goes to New York to go try and raise some money. He'd been struggling because of course, it's always difficult to raise money. He goes to New York, goes into a room where there's a bunch of rich Hispanic people, and starts getting checks offered to him within the first like 2 hours.
Yeah.
You want to know why? Because one, people look after their own, so you should use every single thing you can, especially if you're some shade of brown. You should try and get into a room with other similar shades, because trust me, everybody, all the Hispanic communities, think of all the stuff that we've engaged with.
Oh yeah.
So doing that, but also the business model, he was in the right room, he was dressed the part, and they looked at him like, hey, this is a young kid, he's working. To them, he's a kid, right? Because they're all older guys, but it's like he's part of our group, he's building startups, he's doing this. Sounds like he's got a good head on his shoulders. Take the risk. And it's like, there it is.
Take the risk.
That's the true investor mindset, take the risks, which there's not that many that do that as much these days. It's a shame.
They want to take a promise.
Yeah, it's one of those, again, I'm all for investing at the end of the race, but a lot of investors will try and come in much later in the game and say it's early. It's like, you can't join the race halfway through and say you were an early to, like, how did they call it so early? It's like, bro, they were a Series A company with like tens of thousands of users, a functioning product, reviews, IP. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, of course, that business, like any other business, can go under, but you weren't there at the idea stage. If you, to me, the truest like investors that I would consider like risky startup investors invest idea or invest early MVP, which means they have few to no customers. So it's like those are the real risk takers. Everybody else, you're coming into a business that likely already has positive signals.
Yeah.
So at a minimum, you're getting a signal from the market that says yay. You're not looking at a dead market and having to make a judgment call.
Yeah. Because they're not trying to hit one big one, right? They're just trying to make it's more of like a risk management strategy, isn't it?
Correct, because
for VCs.
VCs,
like
yes.
Yeah, VCs. Yeah.
Because they accept two variables which are especially critical. One is that most startups fail. And even if you break even, that's still failure because they're investing to make money, not break even, right?
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
like, of 9 companies, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 go to 0. A few break even or hit break even, 1, 2, 3, and 1 or 2 go 10 to 100 to 1,000x and make all the return. But it's not just that the businesses fail. The problem is there's all these X factors, namely the general market, but also, hold on.
Nice.
But also the team, because the team can fall apart. More companies fall apart because the teams fall apart than the business falls apart. So you can have a business that looks promising and has all the right signals, and then X, Y, and Z thing happens, and all of a sudden now you don't have that business anymore. So it's like even if the product seemed good, it just didn't work out the way it should have.
Yeah.
So they have to de-risk it. But the nice thing is the earlier you come in, obviously the more you stand to own.
Oh yeah.
That's why I like coming in at the idea stage and early MVP, because it's like, hey, that's when I can add the most value. That's when I can own the most equity genuinely. Like, it's like, hey, I'm coming at the idea stage. Of course, I have to be like compensated for that because there's no proof, right? This is the most risk.
Yeah.
But I'd rather play the high risk game than the low risk game.
Sounds like more fun.
Oh yeah, it's like, again, if I wanted to do things like slow and steady, I would just work a job or work at have a salary at like a series BCD startup and take it easy. By all means, enjoy, live good life, make good money. But I want interesting things, and that means you have to get in early and own stuff and negotiate and be there on the ground floor and blah blah blah. But I like the interesting. You can take that.
Yeah.
I also generally advise in-person networking events. Digital ones can be nice to like mix it up depending on the style and this, that, and the other. Is that in? Hope so.
No, it's off.
Hate you. But in-person ones are so much better. The difference in relationship building just from shaking somebody's hand, and the difference in like showing up regularly. I'll tell you a scenario that happened to me 100 times. I didn't realize it till after. I'd go to an event, I'd go a couple weeks, I'd eventually meet the organizer and just say, hey, thanks for like hosting the event. Like, this is so cool that you're doing this. Like, I'm having a good time, blah, blah, blah. They're like, oh, that's amazing. And then I'd leave. And then I'd come back like 3 weeks later. And they would see me and they'd be talking to somebody. And they'd go, oh, this is Aaron. Oh, yeah, he's part of our community. And he's always here and he does this. You got to talk to John. And John's one of the speakers. And it's like, I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything to earn that intro. And I wasn't expecting it. But I just noticed like that building of familiarity and then that frequency kind of side of it.
Yeah.
Coupled with obviously coming off as someone competent and nice and all those things. Mm-hmm. Doors get open because, again, you're at a networking spot. They're there to build networks and community. But you can rise above. You can get to the top of that pool by doing some of the most basic things.
Yeah, it's like what brings humans together is closest in location. Like, those are who your friends are. Like, that's who you see regularly. Like, that means something to humans.
Oh yeah, and in my community of like startup land, a lot of my closest friends, especially from Miami, come from the networking groups because it was a bunch of us in our like mid to late 20s, all building, starting stuff, growing stuff, and now it's, you know, years later and people have built stuff and grown stuff and raised money and done all this cool stuff. So now when you hit them up, it's just a different vibe, because it's like, yeah, 5 years in the grind, 5 years of progress, or 6 years, you know, depending on what math you're doing. It's interesting.
Yeah, that's cool. So I think you pretty much answered what are the things I need to look for in a networking event.
I would look for,
Googling.
I would look for a combination of general and specific events. In person, I wouldn't judge the amount of people there as long as it's above like 10, 20, 30. Because if it's too small, there's just not that many people to talk to. You can still make some good relationships, but your just volume is very low. After like 20 or 30, after like 20 or 30 people, it stops mattering because you're not going to talk to that many people anyway. So that, you go in with a strong intro and some reason to be there, you know, gives them something to react to positively or negatively. Dress the part.
So then so it sounds like you have a number you try to look for.
Correct.
So what is that number then?
You mean for like number of events, or?
No, not number of events. When you're at an event, it sounded like you had a number for how many people you want to meet.
Yes. So depends on how much networking you're doing and what the volume is. I was trying to go to networking events every day. So in order to make it, and I would sometimes go to 2 a day, but what I would do is, brutal.
That sucks.
I had a minimum where I had to have one good conversation before I could leave. So if I talked to somebody and it was 2 minutes and it sucked, it didn't count. But if I walked in, shook hands with the organizer, talked to somebody, and they said, "Oh, I'd love to introduce you. I've got this, blah, blah, blah." I'd be like, "Oh, that's great. I'm getting a call." And I'd be out. Because
that might be the framework then, right? You talk to the organizer first if you can.
Correct. Although often, depending on the size of the event, the organizer may be swarmed by so many other people. That's why it's good to go often, because then you'll definitely at some point bump into the organizers. But you don't need to. There's plenty of events I've never met the organizers and had tons of value. It's more about meeting the regulars. That's another critical piece. Whenever I went to an event, one of the first things I did was try and see who are the people that come here all the time that I should take seriously. Because if they're here all the time and they're like somebody legit, that means they're probably like in the community building space, and they're also probably like taken seriously and know people, etc. And literally of that little strategy, that's like 4 of my friends in Miami.
Oh yeah, great.
Ooh, very nice. Oh, I thought it was in. Oh, here's another fun thing for networking. A good piece of advice that I had all the team do in the past whenever I was training my team on how to do networking as well is value first. It means when you go into any networking conversation, you should always seek to give value first. The value could be a kind word, a handshake, an introduction. It could be a small favor. It could be giving someone an answer to a question they're looking for, but do not go in there and ask for something. Because every other at that networking event is just going around like a me monster, just trying to slurp up every single thing they can get. But if you go around and you go like, "Oh, hey, how's it going? Oh, let me know if I can help you with anything." Or like, "Oh, I know somebody in that space. I think I can make an intro." My big thing is I would offer lawyers, because I knew a few lawyers that were actually really good after working with a bunch of lawyers that weren't very good. So I'd go to networking events, I'd meet startup founders, and I'm like, "Hey, by the way, do you have a good lawyer?" And they're like, "Oh no, we're looking," or whatever. And I'd be like, "If you like, I can introduce you to my buddy. I'm not like paid a commission by him or anything, because lawyers can't do that, but he does my legal work, and I think he would, be good for you." And then bam, referrals, and then bam, value. And then you know what their first thing to do in response was, "How can I help you? Well, is there anything I can do for you?" And often the answer was no. But 3 weeks later, there was something. Like, "Hey, you know this guy? Hey, would you mind?" And they're like, "Oh my God, I'd love to introduce you. Here, we'll all get coffee." And it's like, there it is.
Okay, yeah. That's where the value comes in.
The ABCs of networking. Poop.
You are poopy.
I know, right?
So then what are one or two things I want to be working on or trying to do when I'm at my first networking event?
Sure. I would practice your intro, because the sooner you get that down and feel comfortable, the easier it is to just hip fire it, which is, your name, what your background is, what brings you there, that kind of stuff. It seems like a small thing. Nope. Everything is incredibly difficult, including introducing yourself well. So it's like I would nail that. And I would then I would also start by discovering value first things. So using your knowledge and experience. Again, it doesn't come day one. It could be that, remember, I had to meet a bunch of bad lawyers before I could end up offering that value. The first events, I was just nice to people and shook hands. So when it comes to that, mastering the intro, attending a combination of general and specific events, and then looking for opportunities to add value. Those three things are probably the things I would focus on the first.
All right, say the last two again. I was trying to win that.
Number one, have a solid intro. Number two, go to a combination of general and specific events. And number three, keep an eye out for ways that you can add value, value first, in addition to just a handshake, right? Handshake, good vibes, etc. But what other things could you do? If you take those three things, you're going to be in really solid shape, especially if you start stacking up a couple networking events and start learning from it all.
Gotcha.